Morning, everybody. Welcome to the January 19th, 2023 Rockingham County Commissioners meeting. We usually start our meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance, so I'll ask Julie to help us just get started.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. I guess I'll look out in Zoom land and see, we've got the sheriff and Catherine Mann. We have Superintendent Henry. And that's all I have right now. I'm sure others will pop in as we get moving. In the room, we have a senior finance director, Chuck Nickerson. We have our senior director of engineering and maintenance, Drew Gates. We have Robin Bernier, our IT manager. And we have Julie from finance office. What's your official title? Julie?
HR manager,
HR manager.
human resources.
Thank you. And we have Layla. And we have Commissioner Godu, and we have Commissioner Coyle and myself up here in the meeting room. With that, we'll start with the consent agenda.
I'm going to begin with the approval of various meeting minutes, and I move to approve the January 12th, 2023 public and non-public meeting minutes.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion at all? No discussion. So on the motion, Commissioner Coyle,
Yes.
Commissioner Godu?
Yes.
I will vote yes. Two.
I move to approve the December 2022 public meeting minutes.
Motion's been made
Second.
and seconded. On the motion, Commissioner Coyle.
Yes.
Commissioner Godu?
Yes.
And I will vote yes. Now we're on to payroll.
I move to approve the January 20th, 2023 payroll expense in the amount of $1,281,098.42 for the period ending January 14th, 2023.
Motion's been made
Second.
and seconded. On the motion, Commissioner Godu
Yes.
and Commissioner Coyle,
Yes.
and I will vote yes. Okay, we're gonna go on to the liaison updates, and just by the way, just a little note on that, you can use that time. Doesn't have to necessarily be about liaisons, it could be whatever you've been doing or whatnot, but that's your opportunity to chime in a little bit, so I'll go with Commissioner Godu first. Do you have any?
And
And
I don't know
it's
too
early.
much to report, but I did speak with County Attorney Conway this morning. And she is in court, has a couple of hearings this morning, which I guess is not unusual. They're kind of catching up with their hiring practices. They're down one lawyer, one attorney, and a part-time attorney. And they're down 3 legal aid, but they're starting to catch up with what they have to do, and but she's unavailable to come to the meeting this morning, but all is well otherwise with them.
Great.
Met with the delegation. They have a meeting next Friday, go over this wonderful budget review that I have in front of me. And I think we're squared away with them, and UNH is inviting us to a hockey game that I'm not available for. Those are the, and Kathy Stacy's away, but all is well with her department as well.
Great. Excellent. Commissioner Coyle?
Sure. I'll start with long-term care. We had one positive with the COVID report, the one positive employee, but all the residents are negative. So in just a few weeks, we've complete no positive residents. Everyone's back in business, and we are off all COVID precautions, and full activities have resumed, which is a wonderful thing. There is a vaccination clinic on the 26th, who's anybody who wants a vaccine or booster. There was a QAPI committee meeting this week, and for Commissioner Godu, it's the Quality Assurance Performance Improvement Committee. And some of the things they were addressing are the staffing shortages with pharmacy and their delivery issues. Interestingly, we had 50% more admissions in Q2 than Q1 this year, so that's a sizable increase. The mock survey over at Assisted Living is happening this week, and we looked at we got the CMS, which is the Center for Medicaid and Medicare Services, star ratings, and over the past year, we are there's a 5-star rating system. We are 5 out of 5 in staffing, 5 out of 5 in quality, 5 out of 5 in survey, and 5 out of 5 overall. So
Wow.
when you look at the past year and the growth, it is just phenomenal. So over at finance, we have the packets, we got the packets and things ready for Q2 with the delegation. Some of that information was sent over to the executive committee
Wow.
meeting. I mean, the delegation, I'm sorry. The Q2 meeting is next Friday, with the delegation at 9:30, so get ready, we'll all be over there. We anticipate an ERAP run this week of close to $225,000. We're sticking on that very high, it's been consistently $200,000 a week in rental assistance or fuel assistance. So, Chuck's team's doing an awesome job processing, and this week it's something like 40 individuals or families are being serviced this week with rental assistance, so it's pretty significant. Finance is super busy with the end of the month filing deadlines and also audits. The payroll has been particularly tricky just because there's a lot of moving pieces and, additions, whether it be stipends or just all sorts of very specific changes that are occurring that makes it very tricky to process payroll. And we're coming upon an audit time for the Medicaid cost report, so from June 30th of last year. So it is very, very busy in finance. I know we say that almost every week, but the battle goes on. Over at the jail, the population is 140, it's climbed a bit. I think we're going to be seeing a little bit more climb. Excitingly, we had 3 new COs start yesterday and another CO starting Monday. So this is really, really great news. This is the most hiring we've had in quite a while. So that's very exciting. And yesterday I went to drug court graduation, and Attorney Conway invited us, the commissioners, to attend. And for everybody who may or may not know, part of the reason drug court started was because of a $500,000 contribution by the county. And yesterday we watched 6 individuals graduate from the program. It's one of the largest graduating groups, and it was really phenomenal. So there's a couple takeaways as it relates to the county. One, the graduates, actually, all of them had done stints of incarceration at Rockingham and had a lot of respect for the staff and care and, sort of treatment while at the jail. Nobody wants to be in the jail, but they really, almost everyone acknowledged the sort of respect and care offered at the jail. And so that's a product of top down from Jason to the CEOs in terms of their stories were all very moving in terms of, it really was like tear-jerking at moments in terms of what people had overcome and to sort of reach their level of sobriety, and how difficult in the road to addiction, so related to all the things we're talking about with the use of opiates and the overprescription of opiates, but as well as, just life's challenges. So I think for me, it reinforced a couple of things. One was, I'm really excited about the community corrections program because a lot of it is, and in conjunction with things that are already happening at the jail, which is MRT and sort of mindset changes in terms of helping to curb addiction. But this, and I think the community corrections program, where a longer day, 90-day programs will be really helpful. And then the final thing is just that, for me, it was a really nice takeaway to remind myself of, like, you never know what people are going through and the challenges that they face, and to, you know, kindness and compassion and, you know, patience with everybody, because there are a lot of people going through tough roads. That's what I'll sum it up. But it was a lovely event. It really was.
For me, I'm gonna let my department heads share when we go around, Robin, for the department heads, but what I want to share with everybody is, there was a bill that was sponsored by Representative Jess Edwards on Rockingham County's behalf. It was HB 75, which deals with the amount that you can spend without going out to bid. I think Chuck maybe had mentioned this to NHAC. The bill was actually heard maybe last week. Unfortunately, Jess Edwards, he was in another committee and couldn't talk about it. But Derek Furlong from, where's he from, Sullivan County? Sullivan County kind of stepped up the bat, which was good. It made mention that the $5,000 range was really from 1998. And if you take a look at the dollars in 1998 and you fast forward into today's, it's probably like $9,200. So the bill basically tries to increase the amount that we can spend without going to bid from 5,000 to 10,000. That's gonna be exec today by municipal and county government. I don't know where it's gonna go. No one's talking about it. But it does have effect in other parts of the commissioner's RSAs, so we'll monitor that. There's a lot of county bills that are being heard. It's interesting if you watch those, and what those do. For instance, I'll give you one example, HB 422 FN, and FN means there's a fiscal note behind it. Was to create a registry of renters and landlords on rents. And yeah, it was a really interesting bill. They talked about it for 45 minutes, but our register of deeds, Kathy Stacy, was there to chime in, not supporting the bill because it's an unfunded mandate from the state. It would be such a cost to keep track of people's rents across Rockingham County. It's just a lot of work, so. But that's some of
what
it.
end?
What's that?
To what end?
To what end?
Yeah,
As far as the work involved?
no, but what,
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah. Right. I guess they wanna show what landlords are charging for rents across the county.
in an effort.
It's a rent control bill type thing.
Yeah,
Anyway.
no, I know, I think, but wouldn't it take then towns would then have to use that data to put rent control, I
Yeah,
mean, enact ordinances, like.
yeah, it could be enabling where the towns can monitor it as well. It's kind of complicated and a lot of work and a lot of money. I don't really see it going anywhere, but just giving you an example of one of the many bills that are out there. Another one is the fees for sheriff's offices. They want to tie that into being able to increase those depending on the CPI of the year. So we'll see where those discussions go, but I wanted to share that with you, and that's all I really have. So we'll move on to the Rockingham County YouTube channel for posting on commissioners' meeting videos.
I move to authorize the creation of a Rockingham County YouTube channel and further authorize the use of the YouTube channel for posting the commissioners' meeting videos.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion?
Is there, as
Commissioner Coyle?
as I understand it, there's no cost associated with creating this YouTube channel?
That is correct.
Okay, great. That's okay.
Any other discussion? All right, so on the motion, Commissioner Godu,
Yes.
Mr. Coyle?
Yes.
And I will vote yes.
And along with that, I'm gonna make a motion in an effort for transparency, as we discussed, we're recording the meetings and posting the videos, but as it relates to the non-public portion, we don't have any systems in place. I'd make a motion that but we do have an audio recording of the non-public minutes, so I'd make a motion to save the audio file of non-public minutes going forward with disclosure to run or along with the decision to seal the minutes. So that the minutes from the non-public meeting will be, if we seal the minutes, then the audio is also sealed, but to the extent that the non-public minutes become unsealed, that the audio recording will also become unsealed.
Can you make that into a concise motion that was long?
Sure. I think I made it first, is I moved to save the audio file of the non-public meeting minutes, going forward. And the audio will be sealed consistent with the meeting minutes.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion at all?
So what's gonna happen with this recording?
Commissioner Godu?
Yes, thank you. Sorry. What will happen with this recording?
We have to, yeah, like where's it gonna be stored?
I mean, is it going to be, are we going to publish it when it's not sealed, or? It would seem to me that, the only thing that should be published is the actual minutes. If we decide to unseal, a non-public. The audio recording, I'm not sure where it's gonna be or how it would be used, except internally, it might be valuable to make sure that our minutes are accurate.
I believe, I mean, I think those are all really good points, and I was anticipating similarly, we wouldn't be publishing it. It would be available for review should it become unsealed.
So I have some discussion on that. Have you go any other place that does that? I do not. I'm happy with non-public minutes being done that are sealed, and then we can open them up later. I don't think we really need the audio piece of it. I just think that that's extra work and unnecessary myself. I don't really see the value in it unless, like you had mentioned, Commissioner Godu, if you're copying down minutes, as we've been doing recently, but once those are taken and written, we don't need to hold those, because where are we gonna house that? I don't understand. Anyway, I think I would probably vote against that myself, but anyway. Further discussion? I'm just talking on the audio piece.
Well, and I concur that we should keep it at least until the minutes are approved.
Yeah.
And we agree that the minutes are accurate. Is anyone gonna need to review them after we approve the minutes? I mean, to revise?
Yep.
I'm not sure exactly how we would use this tool.
Well, I think it's a tool for further transparency. But, I think that there are enough challenges. And maybe we need to like table it and discuss it further. I mean, I don't feel so strongly about it. It's just an effort to be part of open and transparent government. If we're unsealing the minutes, that having consistent with having why we're recording and publishing the meeting, that sometimes, the minutes may not reflect all of what took place, because unless you're transcribing them verbatim, which is not what minutes are for, it's hard to get the entire flavor. That similarly could be said for non-public minutes. And if our effort is for transparent government, then we could have, if we're unsealing the minutes, that the whole record could be also unsealed. But I don't feel, if you guys are opposed to it, I
Really?
don't feel so strong.
I mean, did you have anything else to add?
Yes.
Commissioner Godu, go ahead. No,
I think that we should be aware that the current policy is to destroy to erase the recording immediately after the minutes have been approved. Maybe we ought to hold on to it a little longer than that. But I don't think that the audio should be publicly available on non-public minutes. Unless just in general.
So my concern would be that you have a recorded non-public minutes that have all these particular bullet points, yet the written non-public minutes that we vote on are different. Because unless you're gonna do, like Commissioner Foil mentioned, unless you're doing everything verbatim, I would want the non-public minutes that reflect what was said, and then if you're gonna keep the recordings, you keep the recordings, but they're gonna match, they're not gonna be different. Because sometimes you don't have to be verbatim with the approved non-public minutes. And so this is where I have a little bit of a problem, because it's gonna reflect two different things.
Well, I don't think it's gonna reflect two different things. It's just the level, you're suggesting that you want to keep the level of detail.
The same, consistent.
No, I know, but it's the topic that we're making a decision to seal or unseal, not the specifics of. And so what you're saying is if I'm trying to understand because it doesn't seem consistent.
Well, let me try to rephrase then. So, if the written non-public minutes that we seal and the recording that you want to keep are an exact same or not, or is it going to be different? Because we'll vote on the non-public minutes, and if the recorded minutes are different for any reason, that's a problem.
Make a motion to table this
Yes.
for further discussion and consideration.
Second,
So motions to table and second, non-debatable, so on the motion, Commissioner Foil?
yes.
Commissioner Godu?
Yes.
I will vote yes. Okay. Where are we? Okay, so we're on to C, owner's project manager for new building construction. This was a request from Commissioner Godu. And we put it on the agenda so we can have a brief discussion. And I'm gonna turn it over to Commissioner Godu to let him speak on this.
Thank you. As I know that this construction project has been going on for many years, at least the planning stages and actual work probably for 2 or 3 years. And I'm new eyes coming in and looking at all of the hard work that everybody's done. And quite frankly, I'm very impressed with all of the folks who have been involved and the vendors that have been chosen so far are all top notch. The one thing that I don't feel comfortable with is the way that we're planning to manage this $60 to $70 million project. I believe that we in general need to have an expert that works exclusively for the county, for the commissioners, because we're the ones who are responsible, that have an equal level of expertise as both the architect and the builder. I think it's completely inappropriate, although I understand that there's some common practice in this, but I think it's inappropriate to have the architect managing the builder because we don't have somebody managing the architect. And I believe the architect still needs to be managed along the way. It's very common for designs that architects we all approve to have flaws, changes, things that come up unexpectedly. 2% change in a drawing to construction would be pretty common. 5% would be pushing the limit. And then there are, of course, unforeseen circumstances that will happen on the construction site. All of these items can cause us delays and can cause us to have cost overruns. And I think that we need to protect the investment of the residents of Rockingham County by having somebody who is on our side 100% supervising these folks. Now, I've identified a firm called Trident. Gino Baroni is the primary, and I've had some discussions with him. He has a great deal of experience constructing multi-million-dollar buildings. Gillette Stadium, Rose Wharf, 75 State Street, just naming a few. I mean, there's significant experience that he brings to the table. He is my closer to personal experience with this particular firm is that the school system has gone through 6 projects that Harvey Construction has been the construction firm. And Gino has been employed as a owner's project manager to oversee all of the work. I spoke with the gentleman who handles all the finance, Mike Carney. He's on the school board for all these projects, and just comment 2 nights ago when I met with him, he said, Gino's expensive, but Gino always saves you money. Every project that he's done, we save money. He says we don't have cost delays, we don't have cost overruns, and we don't have production delays. He has the ability to be able to decipher the difference between somebody made a mistake and we have to pay for it, or it's common that, you know, contractor, architect, gonna point fingers. Well, this is problem with this overrun is because of supply. The problem with this is because we came on unexpected site circumstances, or the problem might be that the design needs to be changed because of some unforeseen. So all these things will come back to us to approve for additional money. An owner's project manager is going to be able to assure us where those costs should be placed. I'm concerned about the money. So I've come up with a list of items that I think ought to be included in the oversight of this project. And essentially, this list reflects the types of services that we would be provided by Trident. So this is worthy of some significant discussion and understanding. It's not a clerk of the works. Owner's project manager is required by any school building in New Hampshire that has a project over $1 million. It's I don't know why it's not required for other larger projects, but in the school, anything over $1 million, they have to employ an owner's project manager. Every government building that's built in Massachusetts requires an owner's project manager. I believe it's appropriate that we have the same. And my goal today is just to open up that discussion and invite Gino to come to our next meeting and describe his services and the types of services that would be provided by an OPM, so that we better understand it. I'm giving you a layman's overview. The biggest concern that I have is that my signature is going to need to go on a lot of these costs. And admittedly, I don't know anything about construction. I could be easily buffaloed. And I don't think anybody else in the county has experience with construction projects at the level that this is, multi-million-dollar. So I'd like to entertain having him come in and talk to us next week. And then, you know, prepare lots of questions and move from there.
Commissioner Coyle, you had a question?
Oh.
Yes,
Well, I mean, just in response, I'd submit we have that person, and that's Jude.
pardon me?
I'd submit we have that person, and that's Jude. She is so smart and so qualified and has been doing this. And I'd say, we did have a multi-million-dollar construction project over at the nursing home. And do you know, Jude managed that amazingly well. And guess what? It came in under budget. So my concern, I have a couple concerns. One that, I mean, I believe, I'm concerned about having too many cooks in the kitchen. That your concern is that the architect is going to not report to anyone. But that the architect is reporting to Jude, who's reporting to us. So we are getting that information, we're, you know, and we will have that support through Jude. There's not a person in this county who knows our facilities, our buildings, our, you know, our site better than Jude. And she has, managed this project extraordinarily well up until this point, and I have no doubt whatsoever that she will continue to manage and bring us, you know, where we need to be with the budget too, and not get, you know, bamboozled. I am in construction. I do not to this scale, of course, but I understand how subcontractors work. I work with contractors all the time. I, you know, have involvement in other projects as well. And, you know, what I can tell you is from, you know, talking over in the last 2 years, from talking over various, you know, bids and, you know, taking a tour of the building or talking about various bids for, you know, infrastructure here. Jude knows her stuff, and she assesses bids, and sometimes has even come to us and say, listen, we should say no, we should reject all the bids because I believe we're gonna get a lower rate next year. And we've made those motions to reject the bids because they've not come in where they should be. So I have 110% confidence that we have that person here, and we don't need to be spending more money to bring someone else in. The second issue that I see is sort of, you're like, you sort of, some of the things you've said where, you know, listen, I wanna, buy Trident. You keep saying that your position is that, Mr. Baroni or Trident is the company to manage us. And that doesn't account for the bid process. So if we're going to if the decision is to bring in a project manager as a vendor, then we have to go through the bid process. So we can't just unilaterally, you know, decide Trident, because we're statutorily required for over $5,000 to go have a bid process. Which brings me to the issue that I see, a further issue of sort of bringing him in next week. Of course, he can come in and make public comment, but historically, we have not brought a vendor in before at this stage. And like, vendors don't come in and make their pitch before they make a bid. That is, you know, and I think could create an appearance of impropriety if we're bringing a specific vendor in to, you know, tout their experience and credentials while we haven't even made a decision whether this is a position that we need, this is not a position, but a vendor that we need, and a vendor that, you know, and then if it's a vendor that we believe we need, then going to the delegation for approval, then, you know, putting it out to bid. So that's not something we have typically done. And I think it's sort of, if we're going to have a full discussion, we should start before we bring in something. And of course, you can come in, anybody can come in for public comment, but that the first step before is maybe like, we have this conversation. I feel comfortable saying, listen, we don't need that, this is not a position, I mean, a vendor that we need, given the resources we have within the county and the, our partnership with Warren Street and Harvey and understanding their credentials. However, we should be bringing in Warren Street and Harvey as part of the discussion. So,
Good point. So this is new to me as well. And just to give past history, I was on the building committee as a delegate member. Although I was sort of in the background, more, Representative Mills and Representative John O'Connor kind of took the forefront of that. And over the previous 2 years, we had Tom Tombarello, who was the chair, who was overseeing everything. And this discussion had not come up at all. I can certainly understand where your thinking is. I wholeheartedly agree with Commissioner Coyle that the RSAs are clear, that we would actually have to put it out to bid. That's number one concern for me. And I will share one thing, on the ground ceremony, when we had the groundbreaking ceremony, somebody from Harvey Industry came up to me and said to me, and I'll just share it with everybody, that they were really impressed with Jude Gates' professionalism that she had. And they thought she was top notch. I thought that was really nice for them to say, and I was really comfortable with that. My biggest concern is that because we have prior discussion on this, that we don't have the money in the budget for it. So this is gonna be, this would have to be a discussion with us and the delegation, if we were to move forward, as to what that number is gonna be. And we've got to put it into the new budget, and that doesn't start till July. Because I don't know where in the budget we'd have that money to do that. And then I wouldn't speculate, I couldn't speculate how much this would cost. Does anybody, would you have an idea, Steve, at all?
I do.
Or would you like to share that?
Well, I have plenty more to share too.
Okay,
The cost would probably be between $500,000 and $600,000.
okay,
It's significant.
okay. So again, I don't know where in the budget we have that. That would have to be brought forth in the new budget, because we just don't have the money anywhere else, I believe. I'll ask Chuck if we don't have, that was never discussed. I'll ask both Chuck and Jude. That was never a discussion point of building those extra dollars. It was never placed into a budget, correct?
It wasn't a component of what we, basically went to get financing for, whether the $25 million bond or $33 million of ARPA funds as far as being allocated right now. So it wasn't a component.
So I also agree with Commissioner Coyle that he can come as a member of the public and speak. Maybe he can let us know where his expertise, where he thinks somebody's needed, so maybe he can chime in those points. But I also agree that if we're gonna do that, we bring in Harvey and Warren Street as well, just so we have all the information to form the right opinion. Is where I would see it going. But any further discussion?
Yes. Okay, so first of all, I have no doubt of the qualifications of Jude. I've spoken with her. She's well organized. I'm impressed with all the work that she's done. But with all due respect to all the work that she's done, she doesn't build buildings for a living. That's not her job. She's got a whole department to run and to manage. And she's the perfect liaison to be working with the project manager. Project manager is going to go far beyond what we normally would be managing, and it's going to protect the county. I don't feel protected. Honestly, I do not. And I believe that we need to do our due diligence to be sure that we're spending this amount of money. And we have a project that is going to not be late, cost overruns, a good example of, problems that occur is in the county courthouse. That project was done without a owner's project manager. That building has failed miserably, and part of the reason we need to build this building, because it's just not doing a good job. The systems and the construction flaws in that building are overwhelming. It was done very poorly. And that's just one example of what could go wrong, and we certainly don't want that to happen here.
And,
Well, I'm gonna let him finish.
I'm sorry, I thought you.
I feel passionate about this because I think it's the right thing to do, and as far as bidding, let's bid it. They're uniquely qualified. They're at the level of Boston, OPMs. Nobody compares with their prices around here. They have experience working with these, folks, and we've got plenty of people that have assured us that we're gonna save money by doing this and being sure that it's being managed just right.
I'm gonna allow Jude to chime in.
I just wanted to point out, we did not build the courthouse.
Yeah.
That's a state building. We didn't.
Right.
Right, the
We had
state did it,
nothing to do with that construction whatsoever.
right.
Commissioner Coyle. did you-
Well, just in part, as part of that, in terms of when we were getting bids for the construction and the architect and construction, I mean, one of the considerations were who did the building over there, right? And that factored into our decision to go with Warren Street and Harvey, because he said, we saw what happened there, that didn't work out. You know, we don't want that, and this is the quality of the product that we want. And so there is where, and I mean, I think it's important to recognize, you know, I think your concern is, hey, listen, how do I assure that we're not getting taken, right? I mean, I mean, if you boil down to your,
How do I assure that we don't have any extra costs and that we're not being taken?
Sure.
That's correct.
and extra costs, I mean, if this is gonna cost $500,000 or $600,000, we're saying that someone coming in is gonna save us $1 million, right? Or plus 600, over 600, right? I mean, that's a big number to save, but what is important to recognize is the relationships that Jude and the team here have built with Warren Street and with Harvey to make sure we're operating in good faith and a smooth process with transparency and, accountability. And my experience speaking to Jude, talking, is that she has fostered those relationships, developed those relationships, they're ongoing. It's not just Jude too, because we're talking about, the department heads working about what they need, and they have an understanding to some extent of their need, even cost to some extent, the demands. And it's the team, the whole team here. My concern is bringing someone new in who's gonna be starting without any of the background, who hasn't been here from the onset, who hasn't fostered the relationship, and by no means will be intending to be in an effort to be helpful to the county, could end up delaying things and causing more, difficulty, and because it's like one more cook in the kitchen that we really frankly don't need.
So quick question for you, Jude. When do we anticipate the project actually starting?
Pending the permitting, we should be breaking ground in April, May.
April, May?
Yeah,
Okay,
stamp drawings are due in the next week.
okay. So does anyone else share my concern about the budgeting part of it? Because, I mean, our budget would be the new budget would start in July, so it's not that much of a difference between the time we break ground and the new budget. So there's probably ample time. If we were to decide to go down that road, we'd have to have a discussion with the delegation to see if they were willing to do that as well. So we have that time. But does it, go ahead, Commissioner.
So I have had discussion with at least Ken Weiler, and he's absolutely in favor of us employing somebody at this level. And again, in all due respect to Jude and her team, because I do have confidence in them. But I would ask the question, how many $60-100 million buildings has this team done? The answer is none. This is gonna be the first one. And although the track record is outstanding, I want somebody in place who does this as an everyday, like, I know how to manage the biggest projects in the world, working for us and working for Jude, essentially. Because she would be the one that would be working on a regular basis with this person. Their qualifications and the qualifications that we need to manage this project is greater than what we have going on here. I feel strongly that we need to continue this discussion. I don't think that we're gonna make a conclusion today. This
No.
is my initial, foray into bringing this up as a possibility. So I respectfully would ask that we continue this and give it some thought, do some research, and allow Gino to come in and explain better what an operations, an owner's project manager does. He's not coming in to sell us a Trident, although it's obvious that that's what he is, but he wants to come in, and I've invited him to come in to explain what an OPM does. I know at one point, you said we don't need a clerk of the works. Well, clerk of the works is nowhere close to what this is. This is not a clerk of the works. This is somebody who has different sets of qualifications. He has engineers and architects and financial people that are, that work for him, that, back this kind of stuff up.
Further comment?
Just, I think it's, I mean, I agree, we can continue further discussion, there's no issue, I mean, I think as part of that further discussion, we should be bringing in someone from Harvey and Warren Street so we can have a discourse, but I think it's highly inappropriate to bring in a potential vendor to tell us why that vendor is needed when they're planning on bidding. I mean, that just creates, certainly that is not what we do here. And it creates, at the very least, the appearance of impropriety, let alone an actual impropriety. If there's someone coming to get to advocate why we need this position and why my firm can do that, and then they're gonna turn around and bid on.
I disagree that there's appearance of impropriety. This is a uniquely qualified person. There's nobody else in the area that has qualifications like this.
So,
It will be to our benefit to listen to what he has to say.
so no doubt in my mind that this gentleman that you're talking about from Trident is a professional. I don't debate that at all. My concern is that we would have to go out to bid. That's state law. And there's no way around that. I just want to be clear about that. I can see both points here. I mean, if we want to get educated about it, but I can understand, if he's gonna be one of the vendors bidding, I mean, he's gonna have to bid the number anyway. I don't see how he gets an extra advantage by just telling us why he feels this is needed, I guess. But I can definitely see it because I deal with this in my real estate world. I sometimes will have, for instance, a septic issue. I'll get an opinion from someone who doesn't sell septics, because obviously if they sell septics, they're gonna be a little bit, they're gonna handle things differently. So I feel that no matter which way we go, it's gonna be fair across the board. So if we were to ask him to come in and speak, then I would definitely want Warren Street and Harvey to be here. And then I would also want an opportunity that any other vendor that does this, that may want to bid, also be able to touch base with us and give us their, just to be fair across the board. That's all I care about. So,
I mean, this is unprecedented that we bring vendors in to, I mean, this is why we have the bidding process. I mean, it's unprecedented to bring vendors in to talk before we have even voted to, you know, to have this vendor, have a vendor service, have the service, and then we have to get funding, and then we have to get it out to bid. It's like 6 cards before the horse. And listen, we're gonna disagree on this. I think that the value here, and your concern is, listen, we don't have anyone who's done a $60 million building, but we have someone who's done a multi-million-dollar renovation project who came in, which was done flawlessly, came in under budget, and I'd submit that every single time a renovation of this scale is far more complicated and far more difficult than new construction.
I don't disagree with that.
so
It's the scale that what we're gonna have here that I think deserves the extra attention.
So I'm just trying to envision how we would move forward, because I think we have to have a discussion with delegation to see if they're even willing to put the money in there to begin with, because going through everything else doesn't make any sense if they're not gonna do that. You guys agree?
But I guess, I think the first step is we have to take a vote on what we're asking to fund this vendor.
Well,
I mean-
it would be for the service, because remember, it's not a particular vendor, because it's gotta go out to bid,
A vendor.
a vendor. And I also would agree that the 2 years that I've been here and the 8 years on the delegation, I've never seen anything that's being proposed as far as having a vendor come in. I'm not opposed to meeting with Mr. Barone, I guess, one-on-one. And he can enlighten me or let me know how, what his opinion is. I have no problem with that. I don't know if Commissioner Coyle would feel the same way. If she had a discussion with him, I don't know. It may be a better route to go, because we still gotta line everything up. We gotta line up the cost. We gotta line up the fact that it's gotta go into the budget for next year, July. And that's still a ways off, so I don't know. So I actually good to.
I understand all of your concerns and they're all valid. I'm asking, I'm not describing the role adequately. I don't know how to describe this role adequately, except to ask you to read what I've written down. Okay, because this isn't my business.
Right.
And I'm asking that we listen to somebody who it is their business, so that we can understand what the role of an owner's project manager is, how it differs from a clerk of the works, and how it will enhance the work that Jude is doing. That's my
I
request,
understand.
to just have that open understanding and discussion and invite them here for a meeting. And then all of the things that you mentioned that are potential hurdles, I agree, this is like kind of late coming in, but that's what happens when you get a new commissioner.
Mr. Coyle.
Think that would be fine if we choose someone who does this work, who's not gonna be, if you can assure me that Mr. Barone is not gonna be. If we get down this road and we end up going out to bid, assuming we get through all those other hurdles, that Mr. Barone will not be bidding, then I think it's appropriate. I think we should find someone, if we wanna bring someone in, let's talk to someone who has no intent to, on any potential chance of bidding on something like this, because then there's, we're not gonna get an accurate read from someone who's looking to bid this for $500,000 to $600,000.
I don't know anybody else. There's no, this is a unique service. This is not a service that you're just gonna look in the phone book and find somebody else who has this kind of qualifications. You look at the buildings that he's built, I mean, if you, and why would somebody come in if they weren't gonna bid on it and spend the time? I mean, these are guys who make a lot of money and, their time is gonna be valuable. I don't, and no, I don't think that it's necessary that he discloses that he's not gonna bid on the project. I'm just asking for information from
I'm
him.
gonna recognize you.
Commissioner, Warren Street is scheduled to come in and give an update to the board. We were kind of holding off until the new commissioner was sworn in. I think we talked about this briefly, Commissioner. They've worked with OPMs. I mean, potentially they could give that side of the story and maybe give us an understanding of how they think that the role would be. They've worked with OPMs. I don't know if they've worked with Trident or not. And Harvey would be.
Small amount. They've worked a lot with Harvey.
So
Trident's
I
worked a
would
little
think
bit with Warren.
Potentially where Harvey and Warren Street already work for us and they owe us an update. I don't know if it's appropriate, but they may be able to provide some insight and then they wouldn't have to like do the whole, I swear I'm not gonna bid thing.
Maybe we should start
Start there.
there next week,
Yeah.
and then we can make a decision about bringing Mr. Baroni in the following week.
Okay, I think that's a good idea because I don't know,
Would they be available next week?
well, is it next week's gonna be the 1 o'clock meeting?
Yeah, so we
that
could
may
just
be
push it
maybe the
off.
week after?
Yeah.
I
Would that
will,
be,
I'll put a call into this. I know that he's been waiting to come in and give the update.
Yeah.
And we were hoping like toward the end of January, get your feet wet, you know.
this would be like the
Um,
first week of February. I
Sure.
believe.
I'll call them as soon as I get back.
All right.
And they owe us an update anyway, so.
Yeah, okay,
And by then we might have more information about the wells and the herd.
yeah, that's a good idea. And, would you also bring revision in for an update on the solar as well?
Sure thing.
Okay, let's do that. I think that's a good plan and then we can have further discussion. So I appreciate you bringing this up. Okay, let's move on to NHDES Wetlands Impact Application Fee and Off-Cycle Accounts.
I move to approve the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services Wetland Impact application and fee, and authorize the chair to sign all necessary documents as recommended by the Senior Director of Facilities Planning and IT.
Second,
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion?
What?
we do?
what is the fee?
$7,136.
There should be document in the back of your packet too, so you have that.
It's based on square footage of impact.
Yeah.
It's just a math.
Further discussion at all? No, I'll say. On the motion, Commissioner Coyle,
Yes,
Commissioner Godu,
Yes,
and I will vote yes. Motion number 2.
I move to authorize an off-cycle accounts payable run for payment of the New Hampshire DES application fees as recommended by the Senior Director of Facilities Planning and IT.
Motion's been made. Wait a second.
second,
And seconded. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none on the motion, Commissioner Godu,
yes,
Commissioner Coyle,
Yes,
I will vote yes. Ascom's wireless phone upgrade proposal and use of ARPA funds approval.
I move to approve the proposed Aspen wireless phone upgrade project, authorize the chair to sign all necessary documents, and further authorize the use of $179,210.04 of ARPA funds under expenditure category 6.1 lost revenue as recommended by the Senior Director of Facilities Planning and IT.
Motion's been made
second.
and seconded. Further discussion on that. Commissioner Godu.
I'm not really completely up to speed on what this is and why we're spending this money. I don't know if I was missing from the meeting that this was discussed. It seems to be jumping on me, and I'm hoping that Jason Smith can enlighten me.
Would you like to hear from
If he's,
Jason Smith?
if he can
Jason?
offer us some
Can you hear us?
insight, that
Can you
would be
give us a little
helpful.
bit of background on this, please?
I'm sorry, so, Commissioner, I apologize. There was somebody that was in the next room over and I had to shut the door and I missed the question.
Yeah, it's the Ascom wireless phone upgrade.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
There's a
So
question. Yeah,
I've been
ahead.
working with Jude Gates and Robin and IT. Goodness, for probably the past year about ASCOM and our communication issues. We overhead page a lot in this community. And with that, there's regulatory requirements of home-like environment within the nursing home that needs to be mandated, and overhead paging just simply isn't allowed. And we have a hard time with tracking staff and trying to find staff in the event of an emergency, or if there's a situation that we need to advise staff. And so our complex is very large, and there are multiple times where I need to try to find members of my team, and we simply just cannot. And with an ASCOM device, which is a mobile portable phone, we're able to communicate. And the wonderful thing with this is the technology is expansive, and Robin can get into more detail with that piece of it. But we're able to hook up our nurse call system device to it to support the residents and the nursing care. If a phone call is being made, an outside line can be transferred to the ASCOM, and we can have residents speak to their loved one or whoever is on the other line. So it has multiple functionalities to it. And one thing that I've realized here in this community is communication is really not the best it could be in other communities that I've worked at. And through ASCOM, other nursing homes, other healthcare communities, hospital settings have these devices to help improve workflow and also communication in the event of emergencies, to just needing to set up a meeting. So there's a long story short, but I'm sure Robin can jump in as well.
I'll let Robin chime in if you like.
Certainly, thank you. We've had our ASCOM wireless phone system for a number of years, probably close to 10 years. And we have been able to reach out to some of the buildings and things, but we've noticed, like to echo what Jason said, the overhead paging is an issue. The ability to reach particular individuals when they're needed without having to overhead page or send somebody to look for it. This project would increase all of that. It would also give the nursing home the ability to send out a group text if there's a code silver, or if they have to lock the building down, or if there's an emergency of some sort that needs to be communicated swiftly, it would do that as well. This proposal, we've worked with the vendor, I've worked with the vendor, this proposal to kind of change it from the original, which was about $400,000, to bring it down to a 2-phase, which would be the first phase, if granted, would be the $170,000, to get our feet in the ground, make the system all that we can, giving us the text ability, the mass messaging system. And then in the new budget year, we would budget for the integration of our nurse call bell system, as well as our point-click care system, which is our electronic health record. So it's going to give the nurses a better way to communicate, a better way to see what's going on in the areas and around the building. So I believe it's the right step for our system. I think that it will also give us 35 additional phones, which is we are desperate need of,
Commissioner Godu, do you have any further questions?
No, that's a good explanation. Thank you very much.
2 questions. One, what's the anticipated lifespan of these systems?
The phones, to date, we seem to swap them out about every 5 years. With this system, the phones would be upgraded. They're more like a smart device, so like an iPhone.
Yeah.
Of course, they'd be, restricted to what they can do, not like our regular iPhones. So we can probably get, I would suspect a good 5 years out of them. Obviously, we're gonna have some that may land in some water, end up in some places they maybe shouldn't, but, we can account for that,
Get the warranty.
with replacements.
Okay, so the $63,000 for integration would be put into the next budget cycle.
Yes, I would put
Okay.
that in the software line in the budget. Yep.
Okay, and then the 179 that the proposal is to use lost revenue. Where are we, and this is more of a chart question, but where was this, or maybe you, Commissioner Tircello, was this something we identified? I know our lost revenue line has gone up, so we have a little more money than anticipated. Is this something we contemplated? And or where are we on our numbers for how much we've expended out of the total lost revenue? Is it still subject to change? Yeah.
So on the last revenue figure, that's always gonna be changing because there's 4 annual calculations of that the act allows us. And obviously it doesn't change our overall 60+ million that the county has received. But already over, now, about 13 million in 2 years. As far as being lost revenue, that is higher than what the ARPA committee, what we had for data at that
Yeah.
point.
What was
At
the
that point,
data?
it was like 9.2.
Yeah, I want to say 10. roughly,
Yeah,
around
10,
there.
it got up to by the time we're done, and when we actually did the official filing, because the treasury had allowed the calculated or imputed, revenue, inflationary adjustment to be higher. It used to be 4.2, went to 5.1. May not seem like a lot, but when you're talking about, 80 million, whatever in revenue, that's a good portion of a jump that we're allowed that we didn't experience in revenue, and that's why the lost, revenue calculation has continued to go up. And with the filing being done by the end of this month, for ARPA through 12/31/22, I'm guessing that we're going to be close to maybe even 20 million cumulative
For
for
lost
lost
revenue?
revenue calc.
Okay,
So which is nice for the county's purposes, because it frees up
how you
us to
expect it?
utilize, right?
Yeah.
Right,
Less strings attached.
yes, less hoops to
But-
jump through justifications to file a treasury for use of a greater portion of our 60 million.
But a large chunk will be eaten by the solar panels that we're looking at. too.
Yeah, so that's still holding at around, I believe, the 10
11.
million mark, and that's been for a while now steady as far, so there's already still some monies available under the revenue replacement, that expenditure category 6.1.
Yeah.
That would be able to accommodate this particular project was not thought of as part of the
Originally, no.
ARPA committees. There were different
No.
phone adjustments, more like resident safety, communications to offset, because of COVID. This isn't going towards like a expenditure category 1.4, which is like towards preventing COVID, because it's a different aspect that we're addressing for communication. So it's not something to help prevent or mitigate COVID per se. That's why it's going into this
Lost
general
yeah.
category that Treasury allows for use of ARPA funds.
Mr. Court, further question?
So how are, like, and maybe we need a little bit, and it might be beneficial to Commissioner Godu too, is to sort of get a breakdown of I've been keeping sort of some track of our expenditures, and I hate to add anything to your to-do list, but sort of get a bigger picture of what we've expended under the category. Do you feel comfortable? Do you feel comfortable using these funds, if we allocate these funds to this project? Versus, alternatively, we could just, it's theoretically, we could budget for the whole thing in the 24 budget cycle. But do you feel comfortable using these in light of, inflationary building costs and all the other?
Well, again, what allows for it too is that the greater that this revenue replacement category keeps on going up.
Yeah,
Because again, already right now, there's enough in there. Yes, it means that the commissioners will need to probably do a vote or whatever to rebalance.
right. Right,
What
'cause we're
the
pulling
funds are gonna
from-
be utilized for. We did already still have some funds that weren't yet fully allocated by the commissioners. They were by the ARPA committee.
Right.
But then, like I said, the lost revenue number.
Yeah.
Keeps on going up.
But
So-
for like resident safety, if we have, I know we have this money in one, whatever, the categorized for resident safety is. It's just recategorizing. So can we? Just to your point, to balance it, do you think it's gonna come in sort of balanced with what we're anticipating for? How much money is going to the building versus other projects?
Well, I think what's already happened in some cases too is that, for example, the employee premium pay stuff under a different expenditure category. That's come in under what was allocated by the ARPA committee, and then also what was approved by the commissioners before as well. That's actually come in under. So that's freed up monies too. And again, so that means that also by default, that some of the monies that are in there kind of falls to the revenue replacement
Yeah, revenue.
category, because that allocation by treasury calculations that were allowed keeps on going up. So we probably need to do I'll do analysis that not only gets us up to date for the whole life cycle of having ARPA funds,
Right.
Because one of the sheets in this quarterly packet, this gives you the current fiscal year.
Right,
It doesn't give you
that's
the whole,
exactly.
yeah, life.
I think it'd be smart to rehash everything again. We'll get.
Yeah, I'll do
Jim to
an
up to speed
update.
As to
They'll
all
give
the
us,
numbers and how they were set up and what we need to do moving forward, what we need to look at.
yeah, because that
That'd be
gives,
beneficial for him. So I think that's a good idea. We'll do that.
yeah, because that'll give us what the ARPA committee originally came up with at the end of August.
Yeah.
A couple years ago.
Yeah.
It'll
Yeah, it's been a
give
couple
us
years.
what the commissioners have actually approved in what we've spent by
Perfect.
category, and then you'll see the difference as far as what's left. There will be the comment there as far as, get the ARPA filing done early so we can see, just what kind of rebalancing might have to go to that loss.
Yeah.
The revenue replacement category, and again, which is much more forgiving. In a way, it'll be nice if maybe even some of the monies that we had originally said, were for the building, which would still be for the building. But instead of being under the treasury expenditure category that requires much more intense justification
Right, we could just, Yeah.
for why are we doing our own building versus somehow working with the states and through that building, which isn't gonna happen.
yeah,
But
Right.
instead, those monies, some of the monies for the building instead go to this lost revenue.
yeah, exactly.
Category.
So Chuck, maybe a month from now?
Yes,
the
because
third
then,
third week of
because
February,
then,
give you enough time to.
yeah, because then the filing would have already occurred for ARPA. And we'll have and with this filing, I believe I have my first opportunity to give a lost revenue number for treasury goes by calendar year in this reporting. But to get our 2022 number for the lost revenue, which will add to that 13 million that we already have cumulative.
Okay, thank you.
So,
No,
sorry.
that's
No, I
okay. That's
appreciate
all right.
it. I mean, I'm just, thank you for your explanations and everything.
I just want to say, going from 407 to 179, Robin, that was awesome. So
Thank you.
thank you for really sharpening that
Exactly.
pencil. for us. That's great.
Well, there's an example of just like your, yeah, it's awesome.
Thank you.
I had the same impression. Thank you. for
Yeah,
your-
so I don't know what the commissioners want to do with this motion. Is it time sensitive? Do we want to wait, or do we feel comfortable we can spend this 179 and prove it out of the ARPA funds and just move on, or what do you both would like to do?
I think it's appropriate money to spend out of ARPA.
Okay,
I-
so we'll
Whether
take,
I'm a little unclear of whether this fits into our ARPA budget, because I don't know what that is.
we're gonna get you up to speed.
But with the assurances of Chuck that, it is appropriate, I don't have a problem with approving this.
Okay, very good. So I believe there was a motion on the floor and we were in discussion, so
Yeah.
I think discussion's done. Or on the motion, Commissioner Coyle,
Yes,
Commissioner Godu,
Yes,
and I will vote yes.
Thank you.
can I request a brief recess?
Yeah, we're gonna take a really 1 minute recess real quick. Just remember, we're still on recording, so. Okay, welcome back. We're just coming back from our break. And we are on a line item transfer approval.
I move to approve a line item transfer request in the amount of $12,700 dated January 13th, 2023, as recommended by the Senior Director of Facilities Planning and IT.
Motion's been made
Second,
and seconded. Any discussion? Discussion,
Just a
Commissioner
quick
Coyle?
question. Did we have unexpected repairs? Is
We had
that,
a number of unexpected repairs. There was one countertop in Driscoll that was a resident injury potential. It cost us $3,000. It was unexpected. Our fire alarm testing came in 35% higher than it did last year. It has to be done annually. It's part of our license. Everything has been more expensive and we've had a number of door issues, auto doors, fire sprinklers. I'm negotiating with them now for a $7,000 fire sprinkler repair that they want to do. And I'm not sure it's necessary. I'm working with one of my employees who used the sprinkler guy. So it's been one of those years where if it could break, it broke and we couldn't fix it. So
do you feel comfortable with we'll have enough for the fuel
I'm
line is coming in
hopeful.
okay?
yes, yeah,
Okay.
actually, it's been
You
a
know-
very mild winter.
Yeah, I know.
So in the scheme of things, that's not a lot of money coming out of the line.
I
So-
agree, but I was
Yeah.
just wondering how we were trending there.
Yeah, we're
Not a rub.
actually, I think it's near 28% right now.
Oh,
Which
wow.
It's, you know.
Yeah.
It's a little bit higher January, February, March, but even so, I think we're gonna be fine.
Yeah, I can't believe
It's been mild, really mild.
that is
Yeah.
unbelievable. Okay,
Good.
anyway.
Further discussion?
No,
All right, so on the motion, Commissioner Godu,
Yes,
Commissioner Foil,
yes,
and I vote yes. Human Resources.
Yeah.
Section request 7-4.
I move to approve an exception request to personnel policy 7-4 for a long-term care services employee, FG, as recommended by the Senior Director of Human Resources.
Motion's been made,
second,
seconded, any discussion? Hearing none, on the motion, Commissioner Coyle?
Yes.
Commissioner Godu?
yes,
And I will vote yes. Exception request 7-4, Finance Office.
And this is for two employees.
Yeah.
I move to approve an exception request to personnel policy 7-4 for two finance and office employees, LL and LC, as recommended by the Senior Director of Human Resources.
Motion's been made,
second,
and seconded, any discussion? If not, on the motion, Commissioner Godu?
yes.
Commissioner Coyle?
Yes.
And I will vote yes. Thank you. Okay, we're at department head updates. I'll start with Julie Hoyt, HR manager.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Well, we are looking at the weather that's gonna happen tonight and tomorrow, so the potential for weather emergency, we'll be talking about that today. HR has been working on some training session schedules for the new personnel policies manual that is approved. People are going on to the Kronos website to acknowledge the new policies right now, but we also want to get out there and get in front of people if they have any questions, go over the major changes to the policies. We'll be holding in-person meetings in the Hilton Auditorium, as well as a lot of sessions on Zoom for people that can't get over here, or it's just not working in their schedule. So that is the majority of what we've been working on this week. In addition to, all the other HR stuff we have going on. So
Yeah, very good.
Yeah.
Gonna go to Jude Gates, our senior director of
Good morning.
engineering and maintenance.
All is well with engineering and maintenance. We're also anticipating the storm. We recently had an employee move into a position that is now a snowplow position, so we're very excited about that. We have one more guy that's gonna be on a plow tonight.
Ooh.
So he is excited too, so it's all good. We've been working, you probably noticed, on the safety treads on the stair going into Mitchell Building.
Oh, yeah.
One half of it was finished yesterday, so it's not just cement board anymore. All these safety treads are up on one side and, pending whether we'll get the other side taken care of. Other than that, we're busy day to day. All
Good.
well.
All right. I'm gonna go to our superintendent, Jason Henry, who looks like he is either on vacation or just kicking back relaxing. Hi, Jason.
Hello, not quite relaxing. I had knee surgery yesterday.
Oh.
I had deep tissue tear on my meniscus and some other stuff in there, so I am here resting and up, doing some Zoom meetings today, and then I have Zoom meetings tomorrow, but I will be back in the office on Monday. Couple of things that's going on. Chuck, as long as you're in the room, I put you as my proxy for Friday's meeting. I hope you're going. And I see NHAC meeting now is going to be done through Zoom. Last Monday, snowstorm on Martin Luther King Day. Officer Evans, that position that we created as project manager, came in and helped shovel around the jail and the nursing home. So this position's actually helped the county out, I think, tremendously, being able to work with multiple departments, and we had the right person in that position who's willing to do those kinds of things. So, which has been very good. I have a Zoom meeting with Autumn today to talk about putting together the recruiting video for the jail specifically. With that being said, as you heard, we hired 3 yesterday, 1 coming Monday. We've had multiple interviews, so there are more coming.
Oh, good.
With Representative Delegation Member Bob Lynn met with me on last week to talk about how the hiring was going, the budget, the meeting on the 27th. So he had a better understanding of the motion that he's going to put forward for the full delegation, asking to take fund balance money to carry us through till June. He too has also talked to Ken Weiler, who's also on board. So I'm going to give him some more solid numbers working with Chuck, but he is prepared for that for on the 27th. Monday, I have a meeting, it's the opioid abatement committee meeting again, where we'll be talking about opening up the next rounds for grants, and I'll know when that's going to open up again. Friday's meeting, reason I'm not making New Hampshire Association of Counties meeting is I have a superintendent affiliate meeting followed by a certification board meeting, and we are discussing how the superintendents can get on the same page so we can be asking for using the same language, asking for the money to support MAT. And that will be done through Zoom. Thank you to Kevin St. James. Yesterday, he came in and for all 3 shifts, he bought pizza for every staff member that was in the building. We supplied some sodas and some other snacks to go with it, but he came in and did that yesterday, which was just really nice of him. James, Lieutenant Warden, a few weeks ago, SAMHSA came out with a grant for Trauma Informed. Trauma Informed is teaching people to be cognizant of things that they say and how it might create trauma in people. Something as simple as realizing when we put somebody inside of a cell, maybe they're claustrophobic. When we put them in there, maybe they're acting out because they're claustrophobic because you didn't realize that. Or another staff member who maybe had lost a child and sometimes we say inappropriate comments and stuff like that, and that creates trauma. I had this training done at my other facility. It was good. So grant came along and we're looking at doing this grant, but at the same time, the court system that we've been working with for some felonies first, other things anyways, we're talking to the judges. They wanted to get involved. They wanted to do this on a bigger scope. So they approached the Association of Counties and said, hey, would you guys help us? And Association of Counties said, hey, Jason Henry's already working on that. Let's just work with him. So basically, we wrote it all, gave it to the Association of Counties. They submitted to SAMHSA on a bigger scale for courts and everybody else. And we did win it. I say we, because Association of Counties actually won it. And there's going to be 20 seats available for Train the Trainer for Trauma Informed, so we can get more people trained in the state to these kinds of training. Now, we're going to get like several seats out of this deal because we did the bulk of the work, but it's going to be beneficial to all across the state of this training that's coming in. And lastly, I was last week at the post-traumatic stress syndrome study committee. That is still going well, things moving forward. We put together our priorities for this next year of things that we can change in the legislation to help first responders as they are exposed to trauma and PTSD. With that being said, I think that's it. Thank you.
All right. Good work, Jason. Let's go to Jason Smith. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm doing this. Jason Smith and Michelle Schmidt.
Well, you made it one week. Last week was your 1 week.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You can just call him Commissioner Tomarello.
Good morning, commissioners. Let's see here, just a few things that I want to address. As Commissioner Coyle mentioned, we had our quarterly quality meeting, which we refer to as QAPI, which stands for Quality Assurance Performance Improvement. That consists of our medical team, all of our physicians, 6 of them, our dentists, and several other community partners that we have. Our clinical team, and then the entire interdisciplinary team, which usually averages around 30 to 40 individuals that participate on our meeting. And our meeting is pretty, it's a 2-hour-long meeting, but we cover a lot of information that we work hard on here every single day. And I provided that presentation to you in the packet. If there's any further questions with that, I'm happy to answer that for you or Michelle. In addition to that, next week we'll be having our annual page turner for our emergency operation plan and manual. We work with Duke Gates on this every year. And we sit there as a team and we actually turn page by page to make sure everyone feels comfortable with the disaster emergency preparedness operations plan and then procedure manual. It is a lengthy process, but it is one that is really, really good as a review, and we all sign off on it, which is also a mandate. The mock survey and assisted living continues. That overall, we're doing very well with that, and I'll provide further information once that is completed. In addition to that, just some community outreach. We're starting to plan for the 2023 Walk to End Alzheimer's in Portsmouth. So we're developing a small group to do that. And we'll open that up to anyone else within the county that would like to join our team. I also did provide the scorecard for the nursing home on the 5-star rating system. Our 5-star rating is pretty significant in that we are within an hour radius of our community. We're 1 in 5 nursing homes that are a 5-star rated nursing facility. Overall, the nursing team and the clinical team work extremely hard to achieve these statistics. And as you can see within that report, their average number of days. So for short-term rehab residents that come to our community for therapy services and medical care, you can see what their average daily length of stay is, and then discharged home or to a different level of care within the graph that was provided. As Commissioner Coyle mentioned, that we did have several admissions in the past quarter, over 40, 48. With that being said, we also had 42 discharges. And so some of those discharges, 17 were deceased. Individuals went back to the hospital for readmission, assisted living, or back home. We continue to work on census development, and before Michelle speaks on that piece, CMS just issued guidance yesterday evening on some changes to the 5-star rating system. They will be doing independent audits now to ensure that coding is accurate, especially around certain diagnosis. So there will be more information coming out to nursing homes around that, but I feel really reassured that our MDS coding, minimum data set coding, clinical care is reviewed and then submitted to CMS, all the data, and CMS will review that independently more frequently than they do now. Michelle.
Yeah, good morning. As far as the nursing department is going, we look really good right now. As Commissioner Kate Coyle mentioned, we have no positive COVID residents, which is great news. And even beyond that, we're not even seeing any trending in kind of just common colds or the flu. I did have a meeting yesterday with a bunch of other county director of nurses, and they are all expressing concerns about outbreaks with the flu. They have their building shut down to admissions right now. So everybody is struggling with that. So we are very fortunate that we do not have that in the building, and we continue with all of our initiatives and precautionary measures that we have in place to prevent that. So we will continue with that mission. Some exciting news. We will be reopening F2, the skilled unit, on Monday. We've been busy this week going back up there, making sure operations are going to be ready, make sure that all the departments have everything that they need as resources to be able to do that on Monday. So we have a plan to move all the residents up by noon on Monday morning. And that's exciting. A lot of the staff, they're just thrilled to be back up on that unit. And it will definitely, speaking to the admissions, be able to allow us to bring in residents with more skilled needs. Just because that's how that unit sort of operates, and will allow us to just expand our options for admissions. So very, very exciting. And that communication will be going out to all the staff very shortly. And other than just regular ongoing staff education that we have, when we don't have crises like COVID or outbreaks, we're actually able to get back to the just the fundamentals of nursing and circle back and do education and just make sure the building looks good and people are getting the care that, that we always say that we deliver. So I'm glad to have a little bit of breathing space to do some of that. So.
That's great. And that's attributable to the team that we have in long-term care. You guys do an outstanding job there. I can't take credit for Jason Smith, the previous two previous commissioners, brought him in, but we can take credit for Michelle Smith. Because she did come in while we were here, so keep up the good work. You guys do a great job. Thank you.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Last but certainly not least, we have our senior finance director, Chuck Nickerson.
So as Commissioner Coyle mentioned, the quarterly budget packets went out to Cheryl for distribution to executive committee members. Yes, that meeting's at 9:30 in Hilton next Friday. It's just for the second quarter review. I will be emailing around the general fund budget review packet to the elected officials that head up departments and division directors, and also other pertinent support people that normally get it, such as certain executive assistants or number twos in different departments. The executive committee packet's a bit thicker, and the commissioners have a full-blown packet of everything. Included in that packet is an updated number as far as what looks to be needed for a supplemental appropriation. Because executive committee being the ones to recommend ultimately to delegation what that supplemental appropriation should be, get the benefit of having updated numbers as we go along, as compared to the time when the commissioners were initially doing their proposal to the executive committees for what amount should that supplemental appropriation be. So instead of about 440,000 to do these enhanced stipends to increase even more so, hopefully up to like 60 or maybe a little bit more than that for correctional officers. So instead of 440,000, looks like it's gonna be more like around 285 or so instead. So again, a pretty good decrease because of these updated numbers. Now, the reason why it's that way is not so good news item, because it means there is more budget space available because we continue to have the staffing issues over there. So unfortunately, the interim kind of increased, didn't have as much of a bump as we're hoping, but also I was being, conservative too, as far as looking at what we need, because the worst thing would be to do like propose a supplemental appropriation, and then have to go for scrambling for like line transfers or asking monies to come from the delegation's contingency line. That wouldn't really look good after getting the whole delegation together for a supplemental appropriation if it came in too low.
Right.
As a proposed amount. I feel comfortable with the 285 figure. Included in that, yes, is actually asking to take like 50,000 from the DOC line and put it into the basically into the 51301, which is the overall correctional officer wage line,
Yeah.
but that really includes lieutenants, corporals, and sergeants too. So that's good news. So basically, 150 decrease in what the
That's
proposed supplemental appropriation will be.
They'll feel great. I mean,
Yes, and the easiest source to say, obviously, we're not gonna take that from taxpayers, we're just gonna say, let's use it from surplus. So the governmental accounting term for surplus is really unassigned fund balance that we're gonna take it from. And there's actually other sources of revenues that come in over budget this year. So that's good as well. And just overall, our picture is looking pretty good. We're even with incurring 100% some of the internal service pipelines, like for benefits, employee benefits like health, dental, workers' comp, things like that, even though we fully expend those right out of the gates because we have self-insured, plans. We're still at below 50% spent overall.
Yeah.
For the county. So even with that, yes, so even with that, that's good news. Revenue wise, obviously, it looks like we're over 50% because taxes come in until December. And that does make up a fair portion of our overall revenue sources. It makes up over half of our funding sources. But other departmental revenues are doing pretty well too. Even though deeds is less than last year, that was forecasted to this standpoint in time, and we're still trending above 50% even with deeds revenues. So that's because transfer taxes continue to be strong, but that's really not so much because of maybe number of transactions, but it's just the pricing
Right.
in the county.
Right.
So with every close, Kathy's talked about some of the large closings that we've had.
Mhm.
And the county gets to keep 4% of both the seller and buyer side of that transfer tax, so. And then, long-term care revenues are, I think, comparatively doing, better than last year. Of course, keep in mind that a large bulk of their revenues actually come in June, so our last month of the fiscal year, because that's when that $6 million pro share comes in from the state.
Right.
And also, we end up getting our largest amounts of the Medicaid Quality Improvement Plan, or MQIP as it's called. That we get that as another pass through from CMS to the state to us. Because we don't have the direct contracts with Medicaid or Medicare, so.
Now, President Biden extended the emergency. Does that help us?
Yeah, so there's a specific line that we have in general government revenue that's for federal stimulus. And so originally during budget time, because again, think back, this is March, last March, doing department budgets. April, going through commissioner's proposed budget. May is executive committee version, then June, the official approved budget. So during that time, I can only forecast out that it was only really guaranteed the first quarter that the increase in the federal medical assistance percentage, or FMAP, would still be in place. And so that basically means that the county as providers, we are responsible for 1/2 the non-federal share. So that temporary increase in the federal share, which would mean a corresponding decrease to our share of Medicaid services for elderly and disabled, was only going to go through 9/30. So I only forecasted $700,000 in that line because that's about what we were getting quarterly. Again, passed through from
Right.
feds to the state to us. And then instead, now it's gonna go the whole year.
Nice.
So it means that because the feds have to give, I think it's 60 days notice. So if they're already looking at, you go past this month and we're gonna go into the last quarter of our fiscal year. If the public health emergency goes through to the first day of a quarter, then that increased federal medical assistance percentage is in effect for the whole quarter.
Wow. Nice. So
So basically it means instead of 1/4 of the 700,000 or so, we're gonna have 4. So that's
That's great.
$2.1 million additional that we're gonna get, and the actual amount or value of that has, or at least we've only received the first quarter amount this year, but that was like 780,000 or so, so 700,000, again, we're trying to be conservative when we budget.
Right.
So, but yes, we're gonna have over budget by, 300% over the budget amount for that line, so that's great.
Yeah.
Great news. So
Right.
which would make it even easier, I think, for the delegation to approve this
Yes.
request for an updated
Right.
supplemental appropriation, because they know that even from the current year funds, we're gonna have a surplus.
Yeah. Yeah. that's
So
okay.
good.
That takes care, that's paid. We don't even need a quarter of that.
That's what I mean, so good news, yes.
Right.
So, and we've been fortunate enough too that we don't really show any usage of fund balance or unassigned fund balance that was budgeted until we're into like basically the last quarter. And we've been fortunate enough, again, in a way, it's a bad news story, that our sources of revenues from other sources, and during COVID, again, some of that's been federal
Right.
temporary sources, that we've come in over budget or about at budget overall in revenues, but the expenses have been that far under budget that we don't end up using any or hardly any of that fund balance that was budgeted to keep taxes lower.
Yeah.
And again, it's not necessarily a good news story, because we don't want to have as many openings as
Right.
what we currently have, so it's, and we're also having less long-term care revenues, true revenues, not just that supplemented by federal.
But it seems like we're turning the corner on both, long-term care. They just mentioned they're opening up another wing, so I think things
Yeah,
are
the
starting to
skilled
turn, which is good.
Well, skilled nursing opening up, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, when
That's a
Jason,
good, real resource. I mean,
yeah, and Jason Henry's saying that, he's getting a response. That's exactly what we wanted. So I think we're moving steps forward. Slowly, but that's okay. We'll get there.
Yeah, when I did the quarterly bed tax or nursing facility quality assessment return filing this month for the quarter ending 12/31. It showed that our census was up by, I think it was at least 1,000 days over the course of the quarter. So that was good. That was good news.
Yeah, we've been admitting more skilled residents, of course, and more residents that have higher clinical care needs, so the reimbursement rate is higher. In addition, January 1st, our Medicaid rate has increased by $13.48 to be $242.10 per day now. So that's been an increase as well with our case mix and focusing on case mix score.
And as
Sorry.
far as
Want to add that in?
before it's mentioned about the audit for the Medicaid cost report, this is a routine thing annually over the course of 4 years. New Hampshire DHHS does a desk review of our Medicaid cost report. And what they do is from that actually helps determine our Medicaid reimbursement rate. It's a lag time of like 1-2 years. And then what they'll do is as a result of that desk review, they'll calculate our pro share amount actually, and then they'll take like an adjustment if they were off in their what they thought our calculation was going to be for the prior year cost report. What happens is on the 5th year, every 5th year, is that there's actually an audit required by CMS for New Hampshire DHHS to do of our cost report. So this is the normal schedule every 5th year doing an audit. So it's not really like we did anything wrong. It's just a normal required thing.
Are we in the 50? When are we in the?
Yeah, we're in the
Oh,
5th
we're in the
year. So they did a preliminary desk review. Actually, they kind of do one every year. So they actually already did a desk review, really, I think of 2022, but this is now the audit of 6/30/22. And again, they'll have an impact when it comes time for our pro share for June, because they take an estimate of what we're gonna have for 6/30/23 cost report. And then you do a plus or minus adjustment based upon either the desk review or the audit of the prior year cost report. So,
Well, I'm glad you're in control of that.
sorry, it's just normal. I'm just trying to say this is not an abnormal, it is
Yeah.
not an abnormal audit. This is an every 5th year, just like we're past due really for retirement system. Maybe knock on wood here. We're past due for the retirement system to come in and do an audit because it's probably been about 9 years.
Wow.
It's been many years anyways,
Okay.
since they've done an audit for that. So,
Coming soon.
What else you
Yeah.
got, Chuck? Anything else?
I'm just gonna stop there. Payroll's a little bit crazy. Yeah, a little bit, some interesting things sometimes happen around holidays too, with how people work, because again, we have people work every which way, kind of different things going on, different incentives going on, what have you. So sometimes, we have to work things out and, think to all the departments that have those situations that we have to work through. Let's see, Ben's doing good work. He and Julie, as far as working on the UKG requirement sheets, which are necessary to get done. Or at least 3/4 of the way done to have a good implementation kickoff with Kronos, because we're doing that upgrade to the new system that, again, different components will go live. But as far as for end users, when we start punching in June, that's basically gonna be in the newer timekeeping system and I think open enrollment's gonna be also under the new system too.
So
No?
this is gonna be the last year for open enrollment in the current system,
okay.
and they're gonna migrate the data over to the new system, so we don't
So-
have to worry
So
about
again,
that.
the goal is, I think the impact to end users won't be really noticeable, will be those of us who are like payroll editors or behind the scenes users that are gonna see the differences. That should all be good. And also HR is gonna have a new document system too, that's gonna be able to have permissions based, controls on it too. So we'll have like hopefully fully electronic, files for personnel and whatever they need.
Awesome.
Whatever they need, so that's great, because that was rolled into the overall cost,
That's great.
so. And I'm gonna stop a minute.
All right.
Sorry.
Sounds like you've been busy there, Chuck. Thank you for those explanations. I don't know if I fully understand everything, but
Oh,
that's why we hired you.
I'm trying to get down the use of acronyms.
Thank you.
I will say though,
Too,
so Sam said though, just so you understand, the grant that was brought up too. That's actually and I'm sure that Jason knows it by heart here, but that's the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration.
Okay.
So we're currently having a grant that's kind of like through that. That was this RSAT grant that we have that's come to a close, I believe this month. But that's a way of like looking at how we're gonna do some of these community corrections programs, and they're gonna start implementing those changes as a result of that grant in-house already at DOC.
Great,
So,
getting infrastructure in before the building starts.
Yes,
By the
test
time we
run it
get-
inside, yep.
Exactly.
test run it inside before you Yeah, on a larger scale, like residential. scale
Exactly.
even.
Very good,
So when that building's ready, we'll be ready from an infrastructure standpoint.
excellent. All right, I'm gonna ask if you're, ready for you.
Just quick. Can you send this budget review in electronic
Oh,
format?
I'm going to. So,
me?
so when I send out the email, it's what I'll do for the commissioners though, is I'll send out all the pieces where the other department heads will get just the general fund budget piece. I'll send you the electronic of everything.
Okay,
That's in here.
Right.
So,
thank you.
All right,
yes, I'll make sure it's Adobe format too, because that way you don't have to worry about, Excel and some of the other.
Yeah.
Separate fund statements.
very good. So
Thank you.
before I go to new business, I'm gonna ask Leila if she has anything that she wants to share with us from the commissioner's office that she'd like to share, if there's anything there.
It's been crazy busy.
Okay. I'm sure.
And,
Yeah, but things are looking better, so.
Okay, very good. Very
Thank you.
good. You're welcome. I'm gonna go to new business now. Does anyone have any new business they'd like to discuss? If none, we'll go to public comment. Now, I want to give credit to Commissioner Godu because he's actually physically sitting here, but he's also in Zoom, I see. So he's in two places at once.
Ah.
But
Secret.
if there's any member of the public that wishes to chime in, no one here. Okay. So we don't have any non-public, correct? I mean, we're not going into non-public?
we have no non-public.
Okay, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I'll move to adjourn.
Second.
Motion to adjourn and seconded. Those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We're adjourned.
All right.
Commissioner Godu, do you want to stay down here and go over? some of it?
No, I stopped